Ada Limón is the author of 7 books of poetry, including Startlement, new and selected poems, The Hurting Kind, which is a finalist for the Griffin Prize, The Carrying, which won the National Book Critics Circle Award and was a finalist for the Penn Gene Stein Book Award, and Bright Dead Things, which was named a finalist for the National Book Award, the National Critics Circle Award, and the Kingsley Tufts Award. Limón is the recipient of a MacArthur Fellowship, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and was named a 2024 Time Magazine Woman of the Year. She is the author of 2 picture books in praise of mystery, as well as And to the Fox, and was the editor of the anthology You Are Here, Poetry in the Natural World. She served as the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States. Everyone, feel free to please unmute momentarily and join me in giving a warm welcome to Ada Limón.
Thank you so much for having me. What a gift to be here. Such a delight. And I hope everyone is safe and warm. And I was remarking earlier that it's nice that everyone has power, that we can do this. Thank you so much for having me, Kelly, and for all of the work I know it takes to make these events possible. So I really appreciate it. Such a gift.
Thank you. And I know for this evening, everyone, I have worked with Ada's publicist, Von Fielder, and we are going to be able to enjoy Ada reading not only from selections from her anthology collection, You Are Here, but she will also be reading selections from her own works of poetry.
So I thought that I would begin by telling you a little bit of the how this book came to be. When I was serving as the Poet Laureate of the United States, I had a 3-year opportunity to come up with a project, and I knew that I wanted to do something that had to do with the natural world, that had to do with the climate, and that linked poetry somehow. And I kept thinking about how difficult it is to feel like we can give something back to our natural spaces, to our sacred spaces. And I came up with the idea that we would do a 2-part program, and one would be it's called You Are Here Poetry in the Parks. And that would put iconic poems in 7 different national parks around the country. And we began with putting a Mary Oliver poem in Provincetown in Cape Cod National Seashore. And after that, we put a poem in Mount Rainier by A.R. Ammons called Uppermost. And after that, we did Francisco X Alarcón in the Redwoods in California. And we put these, and they were on these incredible accessible picnic tables. And the picnic table holds the poem. And when I say they're accessible, they're the incredible stewards at the National Park Service, who are just some of the best people in the world on the planet. Harper's Ferry, who's their design team, designed it so that one side of the picnic table is actually elongated so that if you're in a wheelchair, you can wheel up and you be at the exact same height as everyone who was on a bench. So they were really meant to be really accessible, beautiful gathering spaces in these areas. And then there were these poems. And so people could read these poems, react to them, and then there was a prompt, and the prompt said, "What would you write to the landscape around you?" And I kept thinking about how difficult it is sometimes to feel like we're in a reciprocal relationship with nature. And so I wanted people to have an opportunity to feel that awe and wonder and connection and the slowing down that a great poem can offer us when we're looking in the natural world. But then at the same time, think, oh, well, what would I write? what would be the thing that moves me or that I would want to give back to this place? And so then it becomes like, oh, this is now a reciprocal relationship that I have with this beauty, with this wonder. And then the second part of the project was something that was just so near and dear to me, which is this book, You Are Here, Poetry in the Natural World. And what I decided to do was think about all the poets I knew right now. There's so many. I mean, this book really could be 1,000 pages long, if not more. Um, but who were really writing about landscape in a way that I thought was compelling. And I just asked them, hey, would you write something original for this book? And almost everybody said yes. There were a few people that were going through some personal issues that there was no way that that would have been something that they could have handled at that moment. But for the most part, everyone said yes. And as I got these poems sent to me, I was just weeping. I just kept thinking, oh, this is exactly what I was thinking. I never chose them necessarily by geography. I just thought, who's working in interesting ways with landscape and in ways where we could create something like what I call a new nature poem, right? That's not just um, Wordsworth standing on a mountain having an epiphany about nature, but the real nature. And I wanted it to feel like America, in the sense that it was, that it was inclusive, but also that it approached it in a way that felt like there wasn't a preciousness to nature, but there was a reality to it. And as soon as I saw all of them come together, I just was like, oh, this is one of the greatest honors of my life to edit this book. And originally, the editor I was working with at Milkweed Editions, who is a marvelous independent press in Minneapolis right now, so we have to send them all our good thoughts. They are really remarkable. And Bailey Hutchinson, who's also a poet, was working with me, and they had said, you know what, why don't we put them everything in alphabetical order? Because that'll feel just the easiest. And, we're working on a deadline. We want to get it out by April for National Poetry Month, all those things that you consider. And I said, no, 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 there's an order to this. I think there's really an order to this book. And so I played some music. I was living in Kentucky at the time, just near you guys. And I put all the poems out on the table, on my kitchen table, and then some on the floor. And then they spill out, which is always such a beautiful thing to have the tangible realness of poems. And I thought, oh, all of this is a long poem. So let me put the long poem in an order. And that's how the final book came to be. And they did a really remarkable job, so I'm really grateful for it. And then by the time we put this out, we were able to go on the road and go to all the national parks, those beautiful national parks that accepted us, with those great picnic tables, and then bring this book into those places. So it felt like I honestly think that the You Are Here project is one of the biggest honors of my lifetime. And I'm sort of humbled that we were able to do it. But as anyone knows who works with a lot of different agencies, I just heard you list all your partners, and you understand working with federal agencies is quite a lot. And every Zoom call was about as large as this. And we were able to pull off this remarkable thing. So it's just so beautiful that you are celebrating it, and that you're giving out these copies, because my goal is not only for these poems to be something that people can absorb and feel and react to, and but also that you may figure out where your place in it is. So I always thought that if we had unlimited trees, we could put a bunch of blank pages at the back of this, and then you would write your own poems at the back, because it's really meant to inspire you to create your own poem to the landscape around you. Um, I'm sorry that's a long spiel, but I wanted to give you some context about where it all came from, and that it really came from a place of trying to make something that matters. And those of us who do this work, you understand that when you're in a place of service, it can feel so limiting And you can look around and be like, ugh, like what matters? What matters when you're up against this, you know? And yet here we are, and creating things and making things and pointing to the world and saying thank you is sometimes enough, and it's sometimes all we can do. So thank you for gathering and for being part of this and for choosing this. And I thought I would read a few poems from the book, and then I'll read a few poems of my own, and just for about 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll have a discussion. But thank you so much for having me. um I thought I would begin with a poem that is by Carrie Fountain, which is the poem I chose to start the book with. Carrie Fountain is Latina. She lives in Austin, Texas. Also writes is a poet, but also writes young adult fiction. Quite an interesting poet if you're interested in exploring her. This is on page 7 if anyone's interested in following along. You belong to the world, as do your children, as does your husband. It's strange even now to understand that you are a mother and a wife, that these gifts were given to you and that you received them, fond as you've always been of declining invitations. You belong to the world. The hands that put a peach tree into the earth exactly where the last one died in the freeze belong to the world, and you will someday feed it again, differently. Your body will become food again for something, just as it did so humorously when you became a mother. Hungry beings clamoring at your breasts, born as they'd been with the bodily passion for survival that is our kind's one common feature. You belong to the world, animal. Deal with it. Even as the great abstractions come to take you away, the regrets, the distractions, you can at any second come back to the world to which you belong. The world you never left, won't ever leave. Cells forever, forever going through their changes, as they have been since you were less than anything. Simple information born inside your own mother's newborn body, itself made from the stuff your grandmother carried within hers when at 12 she packed her belongings and left the Scottish island she'd known, all she'd ever known, on a ship bound for Ellis Island, carrying within her your mother, you, the great human future that dwells now inside the bodies of your children, the young, which, like you, belong to the world. I love that poem. Um, I thought I would begin the book with that poem, thinking of how many ways it seems that people think we can be unbelonged, and we can't be unbelonged. We belong here. Um, The next poem I want to read is by Gabrielle Calvacaresi. They're a poet that just was a finalist for the National Book Award. They live in North Carolina, a wonderful writer, and I love this poem because it's a spell. And this is on page 25, if anyone is interested in following along. I just say that you don't have to, but sometimes those of us, we're all readers in different ways. Sometimes we need the visual, and I can, do both. An inn for the coven. Witch hazel going wild along the walkway, and all the spots to sit and read our spell books, and all the ways to keep them out. 2 black cats and a beaver who eats carrots all day, Every room an upper room, even on the ground floor, and bee boxes in the way back, and the sweet man who comes to keep them. All our loves are witches too, or warlocks, all our children and all our children welcome. Water running in the brook, clean enough to drink from our hands, and seven sources, and a deep well, all for us and all for those we bring over. Four swings in the branches, a library in every hollow. And birds, so many birds, we stop trying to name them. We'll just let them be with their own names. Maybe they'll tell us. Porches, tomatoes in the summer, and pumpkins in the fall, and curry leaves, and curry blossoms, jasmine in the rooms at night. All loves protected, all of us playing cribbage on the lawn. One of the reasons I love that poem so much is it feels like a spell, but there's also this beautiful way in which, I ask people to write toward a location and to think about place and to think about you are here. And, Gabby decided they would create something, and the place is the place of the imagination. And it's a safe and sacred space where we all belong, which I feel like is just as useful as staring into a real green space and writing about it, but instead describing the place you desire for all of us, which is a place of safety. Um, it's so, I could read this whole book because they're all so beautiful. Let's see, I'm going to skip to, if you hear my dog snoring, she's at my feet. She's at my feet snoring away. She loves virtual readings. That's her favorite thing because she's safe and she hears my voice. It's her favorite thing. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go back actually. I wanted to read this poem by let's see, here we go. I'm sorry, this is gonna go back. So we're gonna go to page 17. This is by Eduardo C. Corral. Um, I had the honor of reading this. One of our parks that we chose was the Saguaro National Park. And Saguaro National Park is on Thano Otam land. And it's an incredibly beautiful space. And you just see these saguaros everywhere that look like exclamation points. And they're all over the land and they're just incredible. And this is this poem. To a blossoming saguaro. You have kin in Mexico. Shooting you is called cactus plugging. Humidity and wind speed shape the path of a bullet. Your shadow will outlive my father. That's kind of comforting. Ghost-faced bats pollinate your dog-eared flowers, which smell like wet rope, melon. The sky is a century with no windows. I say things like that. Sorry. You have more rights than the undocumented. I need a permit to uproot you. Ophelia believes only rain can touch all of you. My mother is my favorite immigrant. After her, the sonnet. I love that poem. And I'll just read one more from here, and then I'll read a few of my own poems. And this is a poem that I closed the book with, which is on page 145 by the wonderful poet Ruth Awad. And I feel like I wanted to begin the book with belonging and the mantra really of belonging. You belong to the world. And then end it with this poem, Reasons to Live. Reasons to live. Because if you can survive the violet night, you can survive the next. The fig tree will ache with sweetness for you in sunlight that arrives first at your window, quietly pawing even when you can't stand it. And you'll heavy the whining floorboards of the house you filled with animals as hurt and lost as you. And the bearded irises will form fully in their roots, their golden manes swaying with the want of spring. Live, live, live. One day you'll put your hands in the earth and understand an afterlife isn't promised. But the spray of scorpion grass keeps growing, and the dogs will sing their whole bodies in praise of you, and the red buds will lay down their pink crowns, and the rivers will set their stones and ribbons at your door, if only you'll let the world soften you with its touching. So I would encourage you to spend time with the whole book. Every single one of them, I think, is exceptional. They do different things. Um, and I would also, if you're teaching it or if you're with young people, I would I would offer that if they feel like they don't really relate to a poem or they don't feel it, to just skip it, go on to another one. It's the most beautiful thing about poetry is that it's like music, so that if you are in a car and you don't like the song you're hearing, you skip it and you listen to the next one. You turn the dial. And so I would just give full permission, and you can say this came from the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States, that they can skip a poem if they're not feeling it, if they're not grooving it, they can go to the next page. Um, and then I would also encourage young people, especially with this book, to then really think of themselves. If they had the opportunity to be in this book, what would their poem be? And maybe to start think about those places they might write to. You'll notice there's lots of trees in this book. There's lots of animals. And so sometimes, especially with youth, they'll have a moment where they feel like they can't connect to a place, but they might be able to connect to a particular tree or a particular animal. And that might be another good way to kind of see, create a poem out of them. But I just, thank you so much for this. And then I'll just read a few of my own poems and then um, how are you guys doing? Good, good. I'm out in California now, so it's funny because everyone here is like, oh no, it's gonna rain. And I was thinking, oh yeah, I mean, I had 14 years in Kentucky and I know the storm you guys are in, where it's like, oh no, the ice, and then it gets cold and then it's ice again, and oh, you can't go outside. You're not going anywhere. You can't get delivery. You can't ask anyone to deliver things. Um, and here everyone's like, oh, I hear it's gonna rain tonight. So let's see. I'm gonna read this poem that I think in many ways uh, is is a poem about nature, um, but also a poem about power. It's in my new book, Startlement, which just came out in September, which is a new and selected, which is a really weird thing to put together because it basically is like a span of your life, and you try not to think of that as you're doing it, but here it is. So this is a poem called Dead Stars. Dead stars. Out here, there's a bowing even the trees are doing. Winter's icy hand at the back of all of us. Black bark, slick yellow leaves, a kind of stillness that feels so mute it's almost in another year. I am a hearth of spiders these days, a nest of trying. We point out the stars that make Orion as we take out the trash. The rolling containers a song of suburban thunder. It's almost romantic as we adjust the waxy blue recycling bin until you say, man, we should have really learned some new constellations. And it's true. We keep forgetting about Antlia, Centaurus, Draco, Lacerta, Hydra, Lyra, Lynx. But mostly, we're forgetting we're dead stars too. My mouth is full of dust, and I wish to reclaim the rising, to lean in the spotlight of street life with you, toward what's larger within us, toward how we were born. Look, we are not unspectacular things. We've come this far, survived this much. What would happen if we decided to survive more, to love harder? What if we stood with our synapses and flesh and said no? No to the rising tides, stood for the many mute mouths of the sea, of the land. What would happen if we used our bodies to bargain for the safety of others, for Earth? If we declared it a clean night, if we stopped being terrified, if we launched our demands into the sky, made ourselves so big, people could point to us with the arrows they make in their minds, rolling their trash bins out after all of this is over. Someone asked me why I didn't put one of my own poems into the anthology, and I said, oh, I think all of my poems are You Are Here poems. They're just You Are Here over and over again. Or maybe We Are Here. Um, so I will just read three more poems. This is a poem I wrote with the I went to visit when I was serving in the role as poet laureate. I went to the National Gallery of Art and was asked to write a poem that responded to a piece. And there's so many things in the National Gallery of Art that are just incredible. And it was very difficult to choose. But I was really drawn to the sculpture by Andy Goldsworthy, and partly because of my work with the natural landscape and the part of me that's interested in the combination of the climate crisis, science, biology, the natural world, and arts, and how that's all connected and should have never been ever separated to begin with. Um, and so I thought, oh, I'm going to write this poem for his piece, which is called Roof, which is half in the building and half out of it. And it's these domes that really look natural. And in many ways, he made that to mirror the Capitol. So it's this strange, and yet it looks like they've come out of the earth itself. And so I started thinking about circles, and I started thinking about power. In the end, everything gives. What is above us? The bleary algorithm of patterns, leaves, towering history of law and lore. Outside the gates, the chaotic hush of flesh and bone, a kind of clamoring, cannon fire, or a brass band, a choir of tree limbs asking, what have we made? Who holds you? Where resides our genius, our courageousness of action? Name the glory, rename the glory, pin it down in a book of legacies, ink and stone. There is a word that returns to me, realm. Someone on a train shrugs cartoonish, what gives? And the answer? Everything. Everything gives way. The shorelines, the house decaying and becoming shrub and moss and haunt. The body that gives and gives until it cannot give any more. When sleepless as a child, my mother would draw my face, not with charcoal or oil paints, but with her fingers, simply circling my features. Here are your eyes. Here are your eyebrows, your nose, your mouth, your chin and your whole face, round and round. This is you. This was when I understood boundaries, that she could see my shape, and I was made of circles, and she was made of circles, all of us modest etchings in the landscape. A fingernail dug into the side of a tree, little winces. Let me count the ways, let me count the days. All the circles of us end eventually. The light is its own story. When there is a hole in a roof, what is the roof? The roof or the sky itself? Maybe that's the real story, neither one belonging to each other. There is that word that returns, realm. I sat by a train window and traced my palm when I missed my mother. I was giving myself a circle. This is your palm, a circle, which is also nature, a strangeness that is you. What is grandeur? Who is keeping score? I believe in the circle, in the light that surprises me, when I can believe in nothing. The palm reaching out is a gesture, a boundary, a circle one could slip through, or something you could hold, and in turn could hold you back. Thank you. I always forget that's a two-pager, so I'm just going to close with this one poem and then we'll move to the next segment. But this is a poem that I wrote that was engraved onto the a spacecraft called the Europa Clipper, which is the second was going to the second moon of Jupiter. It was launched on October 24th in 2024, and it is the Europa spacecraft is meant to go to Europa, which is an icy moon that they believe has all of the ingredients for life. My poem is engraved on the vault plate, which protects the instruments on the side of the spacecraft. Um, Recently, NASA's been asked to scrub a lot of things off of their sites, especially anything that may have to do with those terrible words, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I'm so grateful they can't scrub this off because it's already on the spacecraft and it's already in space. So, in praise of mystery, arching under the night sky, inky with black expansiveness, we point to the planets we know. We pin quick wishes on stars. From Earth we read the sky as if it is an unerring book of the universe, expert and evident. Still, there are mysteries below our sky. The whale song, the songbird singing its call in the bough of a wind-shaken tree. We are creatures of constant awe, curious at beauty, at leaf and blossom, at grief and pleasure, sun and shadow. And it is not darkness that unites us, not the cold distance of space, but the offering of water. Each drop of rain, each rivulet, each pulse, each vein. O second moon, we too are made of water, of vast and beckoning seas. We too are made of wonders, of great and ordinary loves, of small, invisible worlds, of a need to call out through the dark. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Ada. See, if we were all in person, this is where the room would explode.